In very unsurprising news, Tulsi Gabbard ended up not being able to qualify for the next DNC debate. So this is definitely not something out of left field. This is something that I actually expected to happen notably after the last debate when there was obviously two debates, but the debate that she was in where she went after Kamala Harris, exposed Kamala Harris, destroyed Kamala Harris as the hashtag put it, the social media hashtag Kamala Harris destroyed, because Tulsi Gabbard did that to her. And the DNC, I believe, and many people believe, I'm sure, that they went out of their way to make sure that she did not qualify for the debate and make sure that she is out of that thing, as soon as possible. Get on top of that, make sure she doesn't, she's not able to, get any kind of, get any kind of any more traction essentially in the mainstream media, and for people to, to recognize her more and realize who she is. Because after both of the debates that she was in, so I think there was one in June, the one in June and the one in July, after both debates that she was involved in, people were looking her up like crazy on Google. Apparently she got a lot more Twitter followers after that as well. So people were very curious about who she was, and the statements that she was making. The first debate, she called out Tim Ryan really hard on his imperialism and his pro-war positions and shit. Fucking demolished him pretty much. He was left wide-eyed, deer in the headlights, didn't know what to say. Kamala Harris, she went after her with cerebral fashion, just perfectly picked Kamala apart, answered, responded to every one of her claims about being like this so-called warrior for the law and stuff, and being on the side of the people, when in reality she's just a shill for the essentially the law enforcement the law enforcement establishment. Essentially, a lot of people refer to as Kamala Harris as a cop. That's basically what she is. She was a prosecutor, but she's just a cop too, because she puts away people. She puts people away, and she makes sure they're locked up for petty drug crimes, petty you smoke a little weed, you have a little weed on you, you're gonna go to jail. You're gonna I don't know, you gotta leave some information out regarding something in a case that somebody was involved in. It's okay, keep them on death row, and don't let any kind of information get out, and leave them on death row so that they can suffer longer. That's essentially what the legacy of Kamala Harris is when she was Attorney General and District Attorney of San Francisco, Attorney General for California, of course, and now she's a senator. But she has a terrible record, and Tulsi Gabbard called her out on that. Coupling that with what she did with Tim Ryan, Tulsi deserved to get a ton of. She got a ton of credit, got a ton of attention, and she deserved it. And I'm glad to see that she got that. The fact that she's now being kicked out of the debates is just horrible. And it's not expected, but it's very, very disappointing. And they know that if Tulsi Gabbard, because the next debate's going to be on the 12th. It's going to be next week, Thursday the 12th, and it's only going to be one debate. It's going to be 10 people. It's been it's the based on the kind of the poll numbers and our donors and stuff. It's been whittled down to 10 people, and they wanted to make sure that Tulsi Gabbard was not on the same stage as Bernie Sanders. They wanted to put Elizabeth Warren on there, Joe Biden. Luckily, they don't have like John Delaney or John Hickenlooper or anything like that on there, which is good. That's good news for sure. But when it comes to somebody like Tulsi, they know that she's she's not a firebrand, but she's somebody that gets after you really hard, and she calls you out on your shit, and they don't want somebody like that. They don't want somebody rocking the boat, as Bernie Sanders does to an extent, but also did in 2016, which is why they screwed him over so much. So now they're trying to screw over Tulsi this time. They're doing to Tulsi this time what they did to Bernie last time. So they're making sure that's going to happen, and they're going to stay on top of that shit for sure. So I wanted to get into this article here. It's an article from realclearpolitics.com, and this is a piece by Michael Tracy. He's a author, and I think he also hosts a YouTube show too. I think I recently followed him on subscribe to his channel on YouTube. I haven't watched any of his videos, but I think he does like videos and stuff on there. He was also used to be a member of the TYT network as well. But he wrote an article here titled "Gabbard Victimized by DNC's Dubious Debate Criteria." So let's get into the body of the article here. It says Tulsi Gabbard is on the verge of being excluded from the next Democratic presidential debate on the basis of criteria that appear increasingly absurd. Take, for instance, her poll standing in New Hampshire, which currently places Gabbard at 3.3% support, according to the Real Clear Politics average as of August 20th. One might suspect that such a figure would merit inclusion in the upcoming debates, especially considering she's ahead of several candidates who have already been granted entry, including Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, and Andrew Yang. But the Democratic National Committee has decreed that the polls constituting this average are not sufficiently qualifying, quote unquote. What makes a poll, quote unquote, qualifying in the eyes of the DNC? The answer is conspicuously inscrutable. Months ago, party chieftains issued a list of, quote, approved sponsoring organizations / institutions for polls that satisfy their criteria for debate admittance. Not appearing on that list is the Boston Globe, which sponsored a Suffolk University poll published August 6 that placed Gabbard at 3%. The DNC had proclaimed that for admittance to the September and October debates, candidates must secure polling results of 2% or more in 4 separate approved polls. But a poll sponsored by the newspaper with the largest circulation in New Hampshire, the Globe recently surpassed the New Hampshire Union leader there, does not count. Per this cockamamie criteria, there has not been an officially qualifying poll in New Hampshire, Gabbard's best state, in over a month. The absurdity mounts. A South Carolina poll published August 14th by the Post and Courier placed Gabbard at 2%. One might have again vainly assumed that the newspaper with the largest circulation in a critical early primary state would be an approved sponsor per the dictates of the DNC, but it is not. Curious. So to recap, Gabbard has polled at 2% or more in 2 polls sponsored by the 2 largest newspapers in 2 early primary states. But the DNC, through its mysteriously incoherent selection process, has determined that these surveys do not count toward her debate eligibility. Without these exclusions, Gabbard would have already qualified. She has polled at 2% or more in 2 polls officially deemed qualifying, and surpassed the 130,000 donor threshold on August 2nd. While the latter metric would seem more indicative of grassroots support, a formerly obscure Hawaii congresswoman has managed to secure more than 160 individual contributions from all 50 states, according to the latest figures from her campaign. The DNC has declared that it will prioritize polling over donors. In polls with a sample size of just a few hundred people, this means excluding candidates based on what can literally amount to rounding errors. A poll that places a candidate at 1.4% could be considered non-qualifying, but a poll that places a candidate at 1.5% is considered qualifying. Pinning such massive decisions for the trajectory of a campaign or on insignificant fractional differences seems widely arbitrary. Take also Gabbard's performance in polls conducted by YouGov. One such poll published July 12th, sponsored by CBS, placed Gabbard at 2% in New Hampshire and therefore counts toward her qualifying total. But Gabbard has polled at 2% or more in 5 additional YouGov polls, except those polls are sponsored by The Economist, not CBS. Needless to say, The Economist is not a sponsoring organization, quote unquote, per the whims of the DNC. It may be one of the most vaunted news organizations in the world, and YouGov may be a, quote, qualified polling firm in other contexts, but the DNC has chosen to exclude The Economist results for reasons that appear less and less defensible. And let's get into the final paragraph here. It says, then there's the larger issue of how exactly the DNC is gauging grassroots enthusiasm, which is ostensibly supposed to be the principle governing the debate qualifying process in the first place. Gabbard was the most Googled candidate twice in a row after each previous debate, which at a minimum should indicate that there is a substantial interest in her campaign. It's an imperfect metric. Google searches and other online criteria could be subject to manipulation. But then again, the other metrics are also noticeably imperfect. There is no reason why the DNC should not incorporate a range of factors in determining which candidates voters are entitled to hear from on a national stage. For what it's worth, she also tends to generate anonymously large interest on YouTube and social media, having gained the second most Twitter followers of any candidate after the most recent debate in July. Again, these are imperfect metrics, but the entire debate qualifying process is based on imperfect metrics. So this is absolutely true. Everything he said there that I read is 100% accurate, and it's obvious they're trying to keep her out. And what they're doing here, basically what Michael Tracy explaining here is what they're doing is they're cherry picking polls. They're cherry picking specifically the polls that do not qualify her for these debates, and or in this case this specific debate. And like I said, after what happened with the Kamala Harris situation, because Kamala's going to be in the next debate, this one coming up on the 12th, since she's going to be in that one, they want to keep her out of it. And after that, what happened with that, they want to pump the brakes on that as much as possible. They want to keep her out. They don't want to expose her any more than she is. And she also has a lot of attention through, so for example, she went on Joe Rogan's podcast. I think she went on twice. She went on at least once for sure, and she, going with the explanation from Tracy about how she has a lot of, social media support or social media interest and stuff. Yeah, that's because she went on Joe Rogan's show. She went on this other show called The Useful Idiots, which is hosted by Matt Taibbi and Katie Halper, and those are both really strong progressives. Taibbi writes for the Rolling Stone, and the show is actually it's not sponsored, but it's essentially hosted by the Rolling Stone, essentially. So the Rolling Stone kind of airs it for them, and then Katie Halper is kind of his his sidekick, I guess. But but she was on that show too, and she was kind of railing against imperialism and talking about the issues that you obviously don't hear about from the Democratic establishment stuff. And these are the kind of things that the Democratic Party wants to avoid. They don't want this kind of information, that the useful information that Gabbard puts out there about politics and about specific policies to get out there. So they essentially silence her. They put They put tape over her mouth. They shut her up. They throw her in the back seat, and they go and they kidnap her. They make sure they keep her in exclusion. And they don't want her to get out there. They don't want her to get out there and get recognized. Now, if she's going and talking to town halls and stuff, that's different. She's going and talking people holding town halls, whatever, giving speeches and all that stuff, that's a different story. And that's a good thing. But unfortunately, when you don't get recognized by the media, you don't get recognized by the mainstream media, you're not on a big stage where everybody sees you, unfortunately, you're not going to get a lot of momentum. You're not going to gain a lot of momentum. And she was definitely gaining a lot of momentum after the last debate when she went after Kamala, because now Kamala Harris is not doing good. And I think there was a recent poll that came out, I believe. I saw it from a headline from a right-wing website, so I don't know how much I believe it. But according to them, she's polling at 5% right now, or 7%, somewhere in thereabouts. And she's not doing good. Kamala Harris is hurt, and she, don't ask her if she can get up. She's she's down. She's down and unable to get up right now. And possibly they're trying to kind of revive her presidential aspirations again by obviously having her in the next debate, not having Tulsi, and they want to revive that for her, because they know that she's not, she can't do it by herself, right? She can't. It's not like Kamala Harris can go out there and give a speech, to people at a town hall or to people at a some sort of event of hers. No, they want to get her on a main stage in the media. I don't know what channel. I think it's been on CNN, I think, this time. Whatever channel it's going to be. And they want to get attention for her in the mainstream media so that she can be able to state her whatever positions that she has and get more attention, get that attention back that Tulsi Gabbard took from her. And, Tulsi Gabbard stole her thunder, and they have the Democratic Party, the establishment has to get that back for Kamala. Especially with Bernie Sanders obviously getting a lot of attention, Joe Biden not doing that well, although again, Joe Biden's doing well in the polls, but he's obviously doing, having a lot of gaffes and everything. So they have to try and, kind of keep Biden, well, at least Biden's campaign is at least trying to keep him away from getting too much attention. So this is all a matter of trying to keep all those establishment candidates out there. I mean, they even have Andrew Yang in there, who I was reading an article or saw an article, the headline where it's, he's apparently taking money from big donors and stuff, giving, fundraisers and speeches and stuff, and, fundraising for specific donors that give him money and stuff. And, because I don't know, I never thought Andrew Yang was a progressive, but I mean, he's, but again, he's another one of those people that they want to put out there because he is sucking up to the establishment. And, so is Amy Klobuchar, and so is Cory Booker, and all those people too. Kamala Harris, obviously, is in that camp, as well. So all those people, they want to keep them in there as much as possible. They want to keep out Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren is becoming a favorite of the establishment now. So, like I said, like I was covering earlier, so she's okay. Joe Biden's okay. Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard are the only ones they have to worry about. And once they could get Tulsi out there, Bernie is the last one left. And it would have been good if Tulsi was in this next debate because Bernie needs a sidekick to work with. Now, Bernie may think that Elizabeth Warren is a sidekick, but he's really not in the sense of who her supporters are. As I covered earlier, her supporters are people in the establishment. Now, of course, she has support outside of the establishment too, but the people that are loving her right now are the establishment types. And when you're loved by the establishment, it doesn't matter what regular people think. You're getting the love of the establishment, that you're approved by the establishment. And that's a terrible thing that Bernie honestly shouldn't have to deal with. He shouldn't have to go up against that anymore because he's worked hard to garner the support of regular people. Now, of course, he's going to have to deal with it because that's what the Democratic Party wants. But, Tulsi Gabbard is even more of an anti-establishment type than Bernie. Again, they're doing to Tulsi this time what they did to Bernie in 2016. And Tulsi is basically the Bernie Sanders of 2020 from 2016, essentially. So, yeah. And, the fact that they want to keep her out, again, is not surprising, but it sucks and it's disappointing, and I don't know what that means for future debates. But as the more debates go on, the harder the criteria is going to become to qualify for those debates. And the fact that they keep her out of this one means that it's going to be harder for the next one as well. By the way, I want to point out before I forget that so there was an article that was done, an article that was written by from Vox.com, and they wrote an article about the same exact thing that Michael Tracy talked about, but instead they rationalized and defended why the DNC did not choose her to be allowed in the next debate. And they basically just admitted the same exact thing that Michael Tracy did, but they put a positive spin on it. And they said, oh yeah, no, they're totally, certain polls are allowing, Tulsi Gabbard to get in, but other polls are not allowing her to get in. So they're basically saying that the DNC is cherry picking, but they're not using that rhetoric. They're not questioning it. They're just saying like, well, this is what it is, and this is how it is, and this is what they chose. And the fact that Tulsi Gabbard wants it to change is it's too late, and it's very opportunistic and whatever. And then she went on Fox News and complained about it. So they're portraying her as like a radical candidate because she went and had a conversation about this subject with Tucker Carlson. So they're pretending as if she's like, trying to get support from the right wing or something, but nobody else wants to talk to her. MSNBC doesn't want to talk to her about this. She went on CNN too, to be fair, but CNN was defending that same position of like, oh, well, whatever, the Democratic Party is not doing anything wrong. They're not breaking any rules. So it's, same bullshit as usual. And, hopefully they don't manage to pull some shit like this with Bernie Sanders, as far as like not putting him in the center of the stage or something, because I think they kind of put Bernie a little bit off to the side, I think, for this debate coming up. That's what I heard. So we'll see what happens with that. But Tulsi does not deserve to get done dirty like this. It's just ridiculous. And man, it would have been nice to have her in this next debate. But But unfortunately, it looks like it's going to have to be Bernie against the world.